Hello creatures, welcome to Bound by Words. My name is Madie and today we are going to be talking about metadata. A little bit of what it is, how you might want to use it, whether or not you're going to need it for your novel, and so on and so forth. At the end we're going to go over some great ways to track metadata, so make sure you watch till the end. If you have been here more than once before and you are not subscribed, make sure you go ahead and do that, and give this video a thumbs up if you like it so I know what kind of content to create for you guys. Alright, it's been quite a while since I've seen you guys. It's been about 2 weeks now. I was feeling very under the weather last week, so I didn't make a video. But I am making it up to you with some bonus content on Friday. So if you are subscribed, remember to hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I post those extra videos on top of my normal writing videos on Mondays. But this video on Friday is going to be a sort of end of NaNoWriMo list of things that couldn't be more important than word count for your novel. So if you're looking forward to watching that, make sure you update your notification settings before Friday. So without further ado, we're talking about metadata. And this is something, it's like one of those technical terms that some people use a lot and some people don't use a lot. Whether you do or you don't, a lot of people collect metadata on their novels. Whenever it comes to manuscript writing, whether it is for novels, for self-help books, for nonfiction, whatever you're writing, there is a lot of metadata that goes into it. So the biggest pieces of metadata that we see when we come to novels are things like genre, marketing audience, and things like that. Whenever it comes to the actual nitty-gritty of writing, I think one of the most popular types of metadata we see is an outline. So there are many people who don't write to an outline, they just pants it, they discovery write, they figure it out as they go, and for those people, some of them go back through at the end and they write an outline. That way they can do some accurate developmental edits so they can see a bigger picture of their novel. That's what metadata essentially is. A way to see some bigger picture, broad facts about your book. Some other really popular kinds of metadata that are collected on novels are point of view. So if you have more than one point of view, you're going to track whose point of view you're writing in each chapter. Things like setting, and something that I think almost everyone should be tracking on their novel is time frame. So one of my favorite YouTubers, Natalia Lee, is an editor, and she talks about, whenever this comes up on her channel, she always talks about this one client she had that forgot that weekends were a thing. That they wrote in their book Monday through Friday, and then Monday through Friday again without ever acknowledging the weekend. And to be entirely honest, I remember that a lot whenever I think about tracking time. Because whether or not your book takes a week or a month, you as the author have total control over how long the events are taking to happen, but it is important to track for things like that. If your book starts in the fall and it takes 6 months, it's not going to end in the fall, and you need to make sure that your setting and environment is changing with the seasons, or that if you're writing for kids who are in school, that you at least skim over the fact that weekends do exist. So that is another important thing. I don't really get a whole lot of questions in regards to metadata. I feel like it's something that's not talked about a lot, but the general what, if you can define it as just one thing, is bigger picture information about your book. Now, some of us will stop and say, well, why do I need metadata? And not everyone does, but for some people it could be incredibly helpful. So if you are writing a book that takes place over one school year, it might be really helpful to track the metadata for the time, to track the metadata for the settings. Are your classes consistent? Are your buildings and directions and things that the characters pass on the way to and from school, are they consistent if they're coming up in your book? Another big thing is point of view. For example, if you were writing in two people's point of view for your novel and you want their point of view to be sort of equal, you want to equally follow the stories, and you're tracking the metadata, at the very end you will be able to take a bigger picture look at how much each of the characters are talking. If you wanted them to have very equal parts and one character has 10 chapters and the other character has 15 chapters, then are those 15 chapters outweighing those 10 chapters? Hopefully the gap is something small like that, but it might be the instance where you're writing two people's point of view and you get really caught up in the one, and maybe one person has 10 chapters and the other person has 20-25 chapters. So this metadata is a great way to set up some developmental edits, and those are the first edits that you should do at your novel. You should look at it all and say, well, within the plot, what needs to change? So if you are tracking things like location and characters who are speaking, then you have a really good idea of where and how and what your novel needs to do to change. Now, not everybody tracks metadata while they're writing. Some people do it, and I know Scrivener has a really great function in the back of it that sort of allows you to collect and look at all of your metadata in one place. But if you don't collect it while you write, you can also collect it as you reread it afterwards. So you write, you let it sit for a while, you pick it up to read it. A lot of people, when they pick it up to read it that second time, make a list of the things that happen. They make a list of plot points. That way they can see from a reader's point of view what exactly is happening, what is being highlighted, and what is being skimmed over. So collecting stuff like this is an example of collecting metadata, and I think really calling it metadata and using that term is sort of just bringing a little bit more awareness to what and how you're going to be using the information you're collecting. It's not some scientifically deep thing that you have to like pull apart. So that was a little bit of the what it is and why you might want it. Now we're going to go over a little bit of the how to track your metadata and how to sort of keep tabs on it. So like I said, the Scrivener program, if you use Scrivener to write, which is very popular, has a way to track metadata. Scrivener is one of the best organization tools that you can use for a novel, and they're not paying me to say that. There are a little bit of hiccups whenever it comes to things like exporting and formatting and stuff like that. Scrivener is really just like the writing interface. And because of that, you can put a lot of organizational data into the files. So on top of labeling your scenes with a status like to do or done or first draft or whatever you would like to use, you can also put like flags and stamps. You can change the icon according to your metadata on top of just specific ways that you can name each file to recognize what's in it. They also have a function where you can actually look at all of the metadata on the screen, which we're not going to go over how to use today, but if that's something that you would like me to go over how to use, then please put it in the comments below. That all seems a little bit intimidating, and if you don't already use Scrivener, it might be a little pricey or a little bit daunting to sort of get just for something like metadata, which is, I don't want to say highly technical, but I feel like it's just not a good enough reason to buy a writing software. So if you don't have Scrivener, there are some easy ways that you can track metadata in Word or Google Documents, or even if you just wanted to do like on a memo pad with a table. I use memo pad tables for a lot of my notes while I'm sitting here writing. But the important thing is that before you do, you sit down and you write what kind of data you want to track. Now, this might be the same for all of your books, and this might be different for all of your books. As an author, you should really choose your metadata based on what your story needs. So if your story is following kids in high school, then you're going to want to track their school day. You're going to want to make sure you include weekends. If your novel is an epic journey, then you're going to want to track location, especially if you have something like a map in your book. If you have that already done, it would be nice to print it out and have it to look at while you're tracking this, because if you have two cities on your map that are 2 inches away and it takes 4 days to travel between them, and then you have two different cities on your map that are 3 inches away and it takes 1 day to travel to them, that doesn't really add up. So the metadata helps you make sure all those things are plot hole free. So I would advise you to make a bullet point list of the things that change often in your novel, whether it is your point of view or your location, or it is something totally different. Maybe it has to do with the magic system. Those things that change frequently throughout your story do need a little bit of tracking just to make sure that they're given the proper attention and organization they deserve. So whenever I make lists like this that are supposed to be an all-inclusive thing because you're using this to edit and to polish your book, I always make the list on one day and I let it sit until the next day, at least, sometimes a little bit longer, because what happens usually is I make the list and then I remember the next day things that I forgot to put on it. So I might sit down and say, I really need to track who's speaking and the location. And I'm like, okay, that's all that's important. And then 2 days later, I'm just sitting around thinking, wait, I have this horrible creature in my book that pops up like kind of in the middle and slowly evolves into something worse and worse over time. I might want to track the stages of that creature's evolution. If you have a person who, for example, might be like going crazy and they're slowly getting a little bit more worked up, you might want to track that. And the opposite, if you have somebody who might have been hysterical at the beginning of your book or might have been wounded or injured, you want to track their healing on sort of a bigger picture process. You don't want to have somebody with a broken leg in chapter 3 be able to run just fine by chapter 5, but then in chapter 6 they have a limp, unless there's a good reason they have it. If maybe they have a limp because they were running and they weren't supposed to, that is great. But if you had decided that the injury had already healed properly, you want to make sure you stay to your solid decisions. So you have your bullet point list and you have checked it and added it to it, and you are ready to start editing. The way to collect metadata is really subjective. I don't really know how to say it. There's really no one way to do it. There's no one right way or wrong way. It's whatever is easiest for you. If using an organization tool like Scrivener is the best thing to do because you see everything typed out there, great. But if you need to see things visually and you learn best through writing, then bust out your printer paper, lay it horizontally, write timelines, do whatever you need to do. I personally am a fan of bullet points, so I really do like the Scrivener chart whenever I do use it. You can also make charts in Word and Google Docs. You just go to the Insert tab and Table, and then you can choose how many rows and columns you would like it to have. I particularly like to track different metadata in different ways. So if I have a timeline or an injury, I might want to draw that out and see how everything is in comparison to each other. Whereas if I'm just tracking plot points or if I'm just tracking point of view, then I'm totally okay with just including that in my document. So every author is going to have a different thing. Don't let anybody tell you that your way is wrong or that their way is better. That is not a thing that exists. Maybe you need to write down everybody's point of view and then you just want to type up all of your timelines, and that is totally okay. The most important thing is that the parts of your story are getting the love and attention that they deserve and that they are totally plot hole free. So let me know in the comments what kind of metadata you have used before. Remember to give this video a thumbs up if you've liked it or if it helped you. If you ever have any suggestions for videos, also please put them in the comments. I want to make sure I'm creating content that you guys like. And remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when I post my bonus content videos, which I know I said I'm doing this week because I was sick last week, but I have really got attached to the idea over the last month or so of posting a little bit more often. So make sure you have that notification bell on so that you get the most current information.